Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. So good morning or good afternoon or good evening, whenever people are watching this replay. This is our first morning recording, so I'm not going to be smoking a cigar or drinking whiskey, so that's a bummer. But this is Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I'm here with my friend, Jiu Jitsu instructor, mixed martial arts fighter, all-around badass, Jeff Martin. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you, Scott.
So let's start with, why does somebody choose to get punched in the face for a living?
It just happened. You don't decide. You don't choose that. What you're exposed to kind of chooses your pathway. And I found that punching people and defending myself really benefited my life, and then I made a career out of it.
So you and I met a year ago when I moved up here to Valencia, and what great timing. It was funny because I came up here. I used to box a lot. I used to wrestle in high school and tried in the Army, but got my ass kicked. I was like, I should try this jiu-jitsu thing. I've kind of been kicking around the idea for 15 years. And I called a bunch of gyms in the area, and you were the only person that called me back, so thanks for that. And you were just opened a new studio. So you said, yeah, come in. We'll talk about a schedule, maybe do some private lessons, whatnot. And then COVID hit. So I am super blessed that we found each other and we worked out an agreement to stay healthy and do private lessons. But tell us about the gym that you've opened, what your last couple of years have been like, transitioning from fighting to coaching and training, and just tell us what's going on with Jeff Martin.
Well, this has been a lifelong process. As soon as I got out of high school, I figured, we need to go to college, do all those things. But there was just something in me that wanted to fight. Always wanted to be a boxer. And then when I would box people, they'd always have an excuse. Well, what if this was a real street fight? What if this was a self-defense situation? So then I found jiu-jitsu, and I put it all together, and I fell in love with it so much that I found a way to quit my job and do it for a living.
Nice. So how long ago did you quit your job?
On Thanksgiving Day of this year.
Nice. So how was that transition? Like, obviously, fighters, unless you're the top 1% in the UFC, even a lot of guys in the UFCs don't make a huge living wage. What is the progression of somebody who's like, okay, I get into a fight once in a while at a bar, or I was a brawler in high school, to now I'm going to actually try to make a career out of this, and then I'm guessing you have to work to sustain yourself. So what did that journey look like? Well, actually, why don't we start here? How many professional fights have you had?
22 professional fights in the cage. Nice.
And do you want to tell us your record, or?
I have a record of 10 wins, 12 losses. And then, you always go into excuses for your record after
right.
that. I fought everybody and anyone. I took fights last minute. I didn't prepare a lot of times, real lazy, not taking it 100% serious. And it's a game of inches. So one little mistake, you could be winning, or you get tired and it's all over.
Nice. So tell us about that, kind of the high school journey to like finding mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is you found, and then stepping into the ring for the first time. Because I think most fighters' experience is more like yours, right? The journeyman fighting in the regional stuff, maybe having a 500 record, versus everybody just sees the UFC guys who, they're at the absolute pinnacle. So what is that journey like, coming out of high school, dropping out of college, which I'm guessing is what happened, to fight people?
This all started elementary school. I was always the new kid, and getting picked on at a school. I'd come home crying. I was real young, real soft. Not a lot of male influence in my life, so I was very soft. And finally, my mom said, I don't condone fighting, but you have to defend yourself. If they punch you, you punch them back. If they push you, push them back. So then as of 5th grade, I started getting in fights a lot. Junior high, my buddy went to the store, was going to come home with a punching bag, came home with boxing gloves. So every day I had to fight Mike and Larry every single day, who both outweigh me by 80 pounds. Then high school came around. I continued street fighting. I have 20 street fights that I can name probably every single person that I fought in the street. I have a record of 20-1 probably in the street. Don't fight Samoans, but we'll get on that at a different topic. Then high school, I kept fighting. I realized people liked me now, and nobody messed with me anymore. I could live peacefully because people knew I could fight. Then 20 years old, I'm in college going to x-ray school. I'm doing all these things. And my buddy says, hey, Jeff, we can drive to San Diego and you can fight people and you can win trophies. So we went to San Diego. They asked me what gym I was from. I said, I'm independent. I don't represent anybody. I represent myself. I'm a backyard fighter, which is stupid. Don't claim that. And then I was winning my first match, and then I got armbarred. I came back to Santa Clarita. I looked in the yellow pages, back when we had the yellow pages. Found jiu-jitsu, went to 2 different gyms. One gym offered kickboxing as well. And I've been dedicated ever since.
And so what is that feeling when you feel like you're kind of a tough guy and you've been in a lot of street fights and you fought a lot in junior high and high school, and then out of nowhere, because I remember seeing jiu-jitsu for the first time in high school in like 95. I was wrestling. We were like smuggling VHS tapes of like UFC 3 and UFC 5. So that would have been like 95, 25 years ago. And it was just a weird thing, right? Because it's not like what you see in the movies with Chuck Norris or Van Damme, and it's not pretty, and it's not karate, and it's not. So what happens the first time you're like, oh, I'm a badass, and then some dude just kind of wraps you up in a weird way and breaks your arm?
Your ego gets crushed, and you realize you're nothing. And everyone should have that in the back of their head. You can't get your head huge. You're nothing. You deserve a styrofoam cup. Back to that story. That's a different story. But, man, you just stay humble, work hard, and know you're never going to be the best. Even though, UFC fighters are undefeated, they haven't fought that many tough people. Look at Khabib. Look at the first 10 people he fought and check out their records. So I don't care what your record is. There's someone bigger and badder all over the planet. And you're nothing. So always remember that.
Yeah, even the guys that we've seen that have had long histories in the UFCs, like the greats, they still have 5 losses, 6 losses, 8 losses. Because like you said, it's a game of inches, right? So if you get 2 people that are evenly matched in there, weird shit happens, and it's hard to, it's got to be nearly impossible to stay undefeated.
And how do you stay in that championship physique all year long, year after year?
Yeah.
It's too much damage on your body.
Seems impossible. Although I've been seeing George St. Pierre on his Instagram recently. This guy looks like a fitness model 24/7. It really bothers me. Like, that guy's a freak of nature. Anyway, we'll come back to George St. Pierre. So anyway, so you have your first fight. It doesn't go so well. You come back and you find a jiu-jitsu gym. And then what was that like? What was that like, learning a whole new skill set?
It's starting from the bottom. You're the white belt. You're the beginner. You're the person the lowest on the totem pole, on the ladder coming into class. And you have to just stick with it. Day by day, you go one step up. You fall down a couple steps with an injury, and then you keep climbing, and you realize there's a lot of softies out there, and they all quit. And sooner or later, you're the only one standing.
Yeah, so explain that belt system in jiu-jitsu. And I know every kind of mixed martial arts or karate or judo, it has its own thing. Jiu-jitsu specifically, what you mentioned being a white belt. What does that mean, and then what's the progression?
When you walk into a first time on the mat, you are considered a white belt. You wear the white belt. You wear your uniform. As you get better, as you learn certain techniques, each instructor will have different requirements for you to get to the next belt. My requirement is you must have at least one option from every position. So if someone's sitting on your chest, you know how to get out of there. It doesn't work every time, but you always, always, always go to your escape. You never have to think, because as soon as you think, you're too late. So once you get to that level, now you're a blue belt. Now purple belt, you need to link A to B to C. Armbar, triangle, omoplata, sweep, this, that, and never stop. Now you're purple belt. And then a brown belt would be the next level, and that just means more time, less mistakes, less space, less wasted movement. You're not moving your body for no reason. And then black belt is just you never gave up. You're really good at defense, and you never give up. That's it. There's no specific, like, oh my goodness, if I can do this, I'm a black belt. No, you just stick with it. You never give up, and you're no longer soft.
And so you are a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, correct?
Correct.
And then what other styles of fighting are you in love with or proficient with, or is kind of like your go-to?
Well, like you, boxing's so important. That's how most self-defense situations start. So boxing was one of my first loves. A lot of head trauma in boxing. So then you have to learn to wrestle and do some jiu-jitsu. But boxing, I like to kick. Since I played soccer and football, I can kick a 60-yard field goal. So I like to kick. So Muay Thai was more a better fit than boxing.
Interesting. And going back to the belt system, because you are a black belt, what is the first day you walk in the gym and you don't know what you're doing and everybody's just killing you? If you're dedicated, and obviously skill sets vary and different gyms vary, but if you're really dedicated, is it a 20-year journey to a black belt? Is it a 5-year journey? How do people kind of gauge time or skill?
They say an average is 10 years. Now, we have a 15-year blue belt in our gym. It's because you're not consistent. So if you're not consistent with anything, you can't be proficient at it. So 10 years dedicated 5 days a week, 10 years straight. Took me 11 years. My first 6 months of signing up, I only signed up when I had a tournament. If I didn't have a fight coming up, I'm like, I don't really want to go train. I want to go hang out with my friends. Then I realized that's not getting me anywhere. You have to show up. You have to sacrifice your time with your friends or whatever else you want to do. And you got to just go. So 11 years for me. But I've heard of some people get 7 years. What is that? 7 days a week, 3 times a day. Yeah. So 10,000 hours. So there's no specific amount. It's when your coach says you're ready, which is different than a lot of the other martial arts.
Interesting. And I know there's different schools, right? Like most people who have looked up or have a passing interest in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu have obviously heard of the Gracie family and how they started things. So is there different sects or schools or tribes of Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, or is it all kind of the same stuff?
Now that it's becoming more mainstream, it's branching out into different genres. There's wearing the gi with the uniform and the belt. There are 10th Planet gyms, is the name of Eddie Bravo's series of gyms. They do no gi, so they don't wear any belts. They don't wear any long sleeves. It's just rash guards.
So that's a little bit more of a street fight. That's like that's a little bit more of a wrestling match of something I would be familiar with from high school, right?
Correct.
No heavy lapels to grab or belts to manipulate people or anything.
No pulling clothes, no pulling hair like girls. As you can see, I'm a no-gi fan. I want it as real as possible. I want it to be a fight. I want to punch people and elbow people because then it gives me more weapons to actually, go against a big beast like you. I'm going to need every weapon possible to stop someone 200 pounds plus since I'm under 150 right now.
Yeah, so are there weight classes in jiu-jitsu? Like if you're competing, whether it's with a gi on, which explain a gi for somebody that's listening to this and doesn't know what we're talking about.
Think of a karate uniform, long sleeves. It's like a bathrobe. In pajamas. You basically fight in robes. I guess back in the day, everyone dressed like that. So then that was more realistic. So now people don't dress in suits and jackets and
samurai clothes.
Yeah. They wear T-shirts and shorts. So now no gi is more with the times.
Interesting. So this 10th Planet, Eddie Bravo, their thought process is we're going to be a little bit more like the UFC, mixed martial arts, shirt off or rash guard or whatever the case may be. And then there's 2 trains of thought. So there's kind of the gi, the no gi. What are kind of the pros and cons of training in each or either?
Well, to be a black belt, you should be wearing the gi. If you want to receive ranking, it's in the gi because you're not wearing a belt when you're wearing the rash guards and the shorts. So if you wear the gi and someone grabs your clothes and you can still escape, imagine if you don't have the clothes for them to grab. It's going to be easier to escape. So it's going to make your defense a lot better. Being a smaller person, and if I can grab your ankles of your pant leg and hold your pants or your jeans or your whatever, now you can't use that leg. So it's going to benefit you having those grips to control their hands and their legs, and now they're stuck. They have to literally get their foot back before you can continue to fight me. So that can help slow people down. It can slow it down for the person that's not athletic using the gi.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, being a year into this and just kind of starting to get my feet wet and understand what's going on, as a dude who's 210 pounds fighting you who's 140 pounds, or even a couple of the women in the gym. We have a lady in the gym who's a brown belt and she's maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. There is nothing more embarrassing than getting held down by your own clothes by a woman who's 100 pounds. And it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, I can manipulate my weight, but I'm like, how is this girl who's 100 pounds controlling me with my own lapel and my own pants? It's so degrading to be choked by your own clothes. So the whole gi experience is very humbling for anybody who hasn't done it. It's like, if we take those off, I can kind of slither out of places and I know how to roll around from wrestling, and you can kind of get up and box and kick things and do dirty things. But once you put that gi on, it's like, you're just at the mercy of anybody who knows more than you do. So when you get to your level, Are there guys that can make you feel the way I feel? Like, are there guys at a level of a second, a third, a fourth black belt, 30 years in it, that can just manipulate you in a way that's kind of emasculating?
More than you can imagine. The way I handled the white belt students is what other black belts do to me.
Yeah.
There are levels to this game. There's levels in everything.
Is there somebody in the game right now, in the gi game, who you're just like, oh, that's the greatest? You know, that's the Tom Brady of our generation, or who's really proficient in the? And I know we're here in Southern California, so you know kind of all the LA players, because I'm guessing that black belt community is pretty small, right?
It's growing. There's hundreds of black belts in LA now.
Oh wow, okay, I wouldn't have thought that. So who is like the greatest right now with a gi on? Do we have any names to throw around for people to Google?
I don't know who the who's who are because I don't follow the sport. I play sports. I don't watch television. I don't watch jiu-jitsu. If I don't compete, I'm not there. So I'm so busy. I want to fight, and if I'm not headlining, I don't know who the headliner is.
Perfect. So let's go back to the evolution of fighting. So you had your first fight, you got armbarred. You're like, shit, I gotta learn something. So what happened over the next, pick a time frame, year, 2 years, 5 years? Like I know we've had conversations where you're like, man, I could have done X if maybe I would have taken this more seriously 10 years earlier. You know, because how old are you now?
36.
So you're
In
starting
my
to
prime.
push. You're starting to push that prime of physicality. But yeah. So what happened for the next couple years after your first fight?
I went on a roll. I thought I was tougher than I was. I didn't realize I wasn't fighting the champs. I got myself a title fight, and he was a purple belt. I was a white belt. And like you said, getting pinned down and manhandled is definitely what happened for 4 rounds. Don't get me wrong. I had a couple moments of where I thought I was winning, but then we'd hit the ground, and then I was a white belt, fish out of water. I realized you have to wrestle. And when you start to wrestle, your neck and your body and your spine and everything just starts to hurt. And then you start to question yourself and you want to quit like everybody else. Just like you probably wanted to quit when that brown belt 100-pound girl destroyed you. And you're why am I here?
It's so discouraging.
So I was very discouraged. I took time off. I had to heal my double black eyes, my torn meniscus from the inside leg kicks and all that stuff. I was limping for about 6 weeks after that fight. Luckily, I wasn't too degraded after that fight, and I wanted it again. I knew I saw moments of excellence in that fight, and I knew I had it. So I went back to the drawing board, and I fought again, and then I finally won that belt. Then you win the belt, and then you want more. And I dropped to 135. I lost 24 pounds. And after that, I fought a wrestler, 5 rounds of being held and beat up, came out with a black eye again. I took time off. I was defeated. I realized I needed to wrestle, but it hurt too much, and I came up with every excuse to not do it. And then I realized time's passing. People are getting better than me. I need to get back to work. What else am I doing? So went back to work and fought again and fought again and fought again. So what happens is you get mentally beat, and then you need a break. Well, you need to realize you can only take a break for so long. It might only be one day, but if you take a month off, everyone's passing you.
Yeah, that's interesting. in that game of jiu-jitsu or wrestling, obviously the sport's always evolving. Again, kind of UFC, just because they have the branding and then the money to get the better fighters. What does that, to get 20 fights, what does that regional fight schedule, like what does the ecosystem look like?
Basically, you just put your name in the hat, be like, hey, promoter, I want to fight. They ask you, oh, how many tickets do you sell? How many people are going to come? And then they try to give you all these killers, and then you have to try to negotiate. I never negotiated. I just said, all right, you have this killer? Sign me up. Sign me up. Sign me up. I sell 80 tickets. Let's go. So I didn't really dwell on how to. The promoters and I worked really well. I was very professional when it came to promotions, and then that's why I became a promoter. We actually put on 3 shows, one at the Hyatt Valencia. We've done the Odyssey in San Fernando. And I can't wait till Dream MMA puts on another fight show. The first ever fight show of Dream MMA.
Nice. So talk about Dream MMA. Like, not surprisingly, this has been your dream for a long time. What's the evolution of the first time you thought about, oh, maybe I'll own my own gym and teach other people, all the way up to like, oh, now there's actually a marquee on the wall.
Once I walked into a gym and I was there for about a week, I realized I can teach this. I know some boxing skills. I could at least teach boxing. Then later you find out you really don't know anything about boxing. Once you meet a real professional like my new coach, Fernando Guerrero, who's a real boxer. There's levels to this.
Yes.
So I knew I wanted to own a gym. I wanted to teach people how to fight. I thought I knew how to fight, so I figured, why don't I teach people how? So it was always a goal to own the gym. As soon as I walked in someone's gym, I'm like, my gym could be better. Mine could be nicer. So then you have to learn how to run a business. Then you have to learn all that aspect. So it's like a chiropractor. You go to chiropractor school. Well, now you have to get out and own your own business, and you didn't go to business school? So I spent years and years of trying to be self-taught. I follow what other gyms are doing. I helped someone else start a gym at one time. I saw their pros and cons that worked for them. And then finally, one day I woke up and I was talking with a friend. He's like, dude, what are you doing? You know how to do this now. Go do it. I was afraid to break my relationship with my coach because there's this weird dynamic in jiu-jitsu where they're they're against their students teaching nearby. I don't understand if...
Yeah, people are territorial, right?
Territorial, very territorial. So I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting any better. So let's go do the gym. And unfortunately, I no longer talk with my instructor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's that like? That's almost like, I feel like a lot of male relationships, once the son starts to surpass the father, right? Or like the student becomes the Jedi, or the student becomes the master, or just wants to move on and do your own thing. It's such a weird relationship with men. There's egos involved, and there's this masculinity involved. So what does that conversation look like where you go to your instructor who you've been with for how many years at this point?
15 years.
Been with the instructor for 15 years, and you say, hey, thanks for all the education, but now I have to move on and become your competitor. What is that conversation like?
It was complete opposite. I walked up to him and I said, Coach, I feel like a loser. I have nothing going for me. I've been working so hard. It's time for me to take what's mine, and I would love to teach. Can we open a school together? Oh, yeah, sure. Let's go to Palmdale. Let's go to Northridge. No, I'm not driving and sitting in traffic and ruining my mental health for this. So I would like to be somewhere. Oh, let's talk next week. I show up next week. Sir, I don't want to be a loser anymore. I want to grow up. I want to be a man. Do I have your blessings? He said he gave me his blessings. The next morning, I received a text message saying, you are not welcome back at my academy. You opened a gym without my approval, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? It was the best day of my life. And now I'm a dream owner for a year with enough students to make me not have to go to my day job. You know, we're not where we want to be yet, but a year from now, I have goals to build this gym even more. So you think it's the worst day of your life? if you flip the script and really look at it from another angle, you can learn something from it.
So let's talk about that, because what horrible timing for you, right?
Right.
It's like you pull the trigger and you say, okay, buddy, I'm leaving the nest, I'm flying the coop, I'm opening my own thing, I'm putting all my money into building this gym. Plus, I know from our conversations, rack up a little bit of credit card debt. Sweet, we got some students in the door, and boom, COVID. You're not supposed to be open. like it could not have been worse timing to open a gym, right?
November 1st was class number 1, and then March 13th we're shut down.
Oh, brutal.
So I did what was necessary. I shut down the gym. I told students, you can cancel your membership if you want. I'm going to live off credit card if I need to. And then the 2 words that mean the most in business: adapt and overcome. And I adapted, I overcame it. I did classes at the park. Well, now I can charge people for the park classes. Now I can do Zoom classes. Now I can do private lessons if they're comfortable with me.
Yeah, that's how we met. We said, hey, we'll get a test every so often. We'll stay more or less in our households, and if you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Like, I value my health and staying in shape more than I'm scared of COVID. And we came up with a agreement and signed some paperwork and whatnot, and that worked out. But yeah, adapt and overcome. And I remember those park workouts. It's like you just rent a U-Haul truck, take a bunch of equipment out to the middle of a park, and be like, well, hard to get COVID in the wide open. So whoever feels comfortable showing up, let's show up and work out. And what was that like, being like, oh man, I just put all my time and money and energy into this dream, no pun intended with the dream MMA. I put all my time and money into this dream. I'm still having to work my full-time regular job as an X-ray tech. I mean,
doing COVID testing all day, every day.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a time, it's like we would work out at 5 a.m, and then you would rush over to do 8, 9, 10 hours at the X-ray school, and then do 5 or 6 hours of classes in the evening at the park. Like, you're just an animal, man. Like what was that experience like? And I guess the question I'm really getting to is, why was it worth it?
I saw the future. I saw what was going to happen if I put in this work. So to be a champion, you have to already see yourself with that belt. You already see yourself as the champion. So if you can't visualize it, you're not going to achieve it. With that being said, I saw how much money these other coaches make. I saw how many students these other gyms have. I see how they teach and how they're barely there and how they leave early. And I thought, if I'm there teaching every class, if I never leave early, if I'm always on time, never late, I never flake, my gym will be better than every other gym, because they're not doing that. So I saw, and I knew that one day I don't have to do COVID testing anymore. I don't have to clean ears and urine samples at the doctor's office. That's not what I want to do. I love taking care of people, but I also don't want to be playing with urine. So
that's a good tip for everybody listening. You don't want to have a job where you have to play with urine.
Yes. So I'd rather put in 14 hours than do 1 urine sample.
Perfect. Perfect. And you know what lessons, because you're pretty honest in your 20s that, like, at certain times maybe you mentally checked out from the fighting game, or you lost focus, or you didn't work as hard, or you didn't come back to training as soon as you should have. What lessons from your 20s, from being a professional fighter and having a mixed bag of results, have carried over to business?
Life sucks. Life hurts. It's painful. You have to do it anyway. So either you're going to be poor and in pain, or you're going to have some money and in pain. You're going to be miserable one way or the other. Life is hard. There's so many people passing right now, so many people falling ill. Life's not going to be gentle to you. And jiu-jitsu's not going to. You just got to go through the motion and have the best time possible. Do what you love. And if you hate urine samples, don't do urine samples.
What's been the biggest surprise since you switched over? Like, what's the thing you enjoy the most about being a business owner, and what's the new urine sample? Like, what's the point where you're like, oh, I can't wait till we're successful enough to hire somebody else to do that part of it?
Cleaning the mats. I clean the mats every time I'm on it, and I train twice a day, so I probably clean the mats 3 times a day.
Yeah, your gym is impeccably clean. Like you are neurotic at an awkward level, which I appreciate because I came from that wrestling world where people get ringworm and kind of weird shit. So I very much appreciate that you clean the mat 3 times a day. But that's the thing eventually you want to hand off.
I would hand it off, but I don't know if anyone's going to do it the way I want it. So that's the new urine sample. I clean the mats every single day. So I come up with my routine, and that's my relaxation time where I sit and listen to podcasts.
Nice. And what's been the most pleasant surprise? What's been the most exciting thing that you weren't expecting of starting your own small business?
It's a great question. I saw all this in my head ahead of time. I knew what was going to come from this. I saw the family feeling, the camaraderie, the new friends. Honestly, there's nothing that surprises me. I saw this all coming.
And talk a little bit about the economics of the gym, right? Because I know that you have a pretty Sparta lifestyle. You know, if you needed to, I know that you would sleep in the gym. Yep. You know, you're frugal. You don't spend a lot of money. You're still wearing the same jeans from high school from 1995. Luckily, you stayed skinny, so you can still wear all your junior high clothes. You got some Jordache jeans in there that I've seen you walk into the gym a few times in. But knowing that you keep yourself at like a bare minimum of lifestyle, are you comfortable talking about the economics of a gym? Like how many students do you have to have? Like what's the overhead look like? Like, of course, because every business has to hit that critical mass of profitability. And since this is now your sole source of living, like what does that look like for expense ratio and students and you know, making a living?
Well, there's a reason a lot of the gyms are going out of business right now is because there's too much overhead. So even if I don't have a single student, I'm just going to pay the rent for myself because that's where I'm training at. And I don't feel like going to another dirty mat gym. So, you find a place that has very little rent. It doesn't take a lot of electricity. The lights are only on during classes. I use the air conditioning, the heating as needed. I don't pay any employees. I don't even pay myself yet. So all I do is I need 30 students. And that's not that difficult.
30 students to keep the lights on or 30 students to like put a little money in your pocket and feed Jeff?
I get a couple bucks. It pays my car payment.
Perfect.
So then I don't have any other bills really. Cell phone, car payment, insurance. That's it.
Perfect. And how much was the cost? You have what, about 1,000 square foot gym? Is that fair?
Yeah, 900 to 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Very small.
And to get everything, because it's beautifully laid out. I mean, it's not a ton of space, but there's plenty of space for 20 of us to be kicking the shit out of each other. Mm-hmm. So 1,000 square feet, you know, walls are padded, floors are padded. We got springs under the mat so people don't get injured. It's very nicely laid out. When it was all said and done, soup to nuts, you know, deposit on the building, getting the utilities hooked up, you know, I'm guessing that was tens of thousands of dollars worth of mats. Like, what was the all-in cost to say, I now own a gym, Scott, let's go and work out?
And you know what? This is great. Most people say, I can't start a business because I have no money. I did this with $0. I had credit card debt when I started. I took on $15,000 of credit. I think I did this for less than 20 grand, 15 grand I think I did it for. You can probably do it for 10 if you want to get cheap mats, but I figured let's get the top of the line. You can maybe get away for 10 grand, 10 to 20 grand. If you're spending more than 20 grand, or if you're spending 20 grand to open a gym, you're doing it wrong. You have to do it as cheap as possible and don't cut corners on your mats. So 15 grand a credit card. I did it all on credit card. It's all paid off. I paid off all my regular debt. I am now debt free. I no longer work for somebody and I have my own business.
And that's 1 year in what is probably the worst year in the last 100 years to start a business.
That's what they say. But there's a reason businesses go out of business. They weren't going to make it anyway. They don't know what they're doing. They didn't put in enough research. They don't put in enough road work. You got to work 14 hours a day. I work more hours now than I did with the doctor's office. And I wake up and if I'm awake, I'm working on the gym or I'm working on my body. There's nothing else. And if you have a clear-cut goal and you focus on one thing and you get proficient at one thing, then you can be an expert.
You know that lead generation is near and dear to my heart. I wrote a book about it. It's what I coach about. Talk about the lead generation for a gym, right? Because you can have a beautiful gym. You can have a great plan. You can super low cost of entry, keep your expenses low. But if there's nobody giving you monthly dues, it's over. So what's the lead generation look like? And maybe talk a little bit about building the culture of your gym and who you've attracted and who's a paying client, and talk a little bit about that journey.
First, you got to go after the people you know. And everyone said, oh, Jeff, if you open a gym, I'll be there. 1 or 2 of those people are there. Out of the 30 people said they were going to come in, they're not there. So you can't just go off what people say. You have to work hard. So now I always compare it to the drop in a bucket. 1 drop in the bucket. If multiple drops here and there, so it'll get 1 person from Yelp, 1 person from Google, 1 person from Facebook, Instagram, and you hit every avenue there is. And if you miss 1 avenue, you might miss that 1 person. And that 1 person could be a Mr. Scott Groves who wants to train every single day and wants to be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that, and I don't mind sharing this information, you know, I have a schedule that's very demanding. And so I told you, I said, hey, Mr. Coach Jeff, as my kids like to call you. I said, Mr. Coach Jeff, I cannot work out in the evenings usually. There's no chance I can work out at these 8:30, 9:30, 10 a.m. I don't know where all these jiu-jitsu practitioners come from that can work out at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because, like, don't these guys have jobs?
Right.
I'm so shocked. It's
Why
like,
is 10 o'clock class?
All these jiu-jitsu
everywhere?
gyms are packed at 10 a.m. I'm like, what the fuck do you guys do for a living? Anyway, I digress. So I called you and I'm like, hey man, I will pay for private lessons if you'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work out with me. And now I've brought my kids, and then we've done some additional private lessons. So just answering that phone call was probably good for $5,000 worth of revenue from our family. And you were literally the only one that answered the call. And I called like 6 different gyms up here. So yeah, kudos to you for answering your phone and doing the Instagram and doing all of that stuff. And I've noticed from some of the other gyms that I've now worked out with open mats, like you can feel like Dream MMA is new, right? Like a lot of your people are new. They're white belts. There's a culture of like learning and camaraderie. And you have some other guys that come in blue, purple, brown belts that are all great, and they're all very warm and like teaching, and they're excited to be instructors. But how did you talk 30, 40, 50? You know, you probably got 50 white belts in there right now. Like, how'd you talk 50 guys into being like, you know what you want to do with your time and money? You want to come get beat up by Coach Jeff and pay for it.
You know, you want neck pain? You know, you want me to choke you and make you feel like a little kid? Honestly, I didn't talk them into it. I was passionate. I told them my goals. And then I guess that's just leading by example. And then they want to be like you. So they see that, hey, you just want a belt. I want a belt. Oh, you want a gold medal? I want a gold medal. So you just lead by example. Oh, you're working on a 6-pack? I want a 6-pack. So then you show them what's possible, and then they'll follow you.
Interesting. So how many students do you have now that are coming in various, you know, fashions? Kids, adults, families, private clients?
You know, I'm different than every other gym. I have no contracts. I believe in myself. I'm month to month. If you need to take a week off, I'm not charging you. You come as you please. I probably have close to 50 people on rotation there. Coming to the park and Zoom meetings and 50 people. 1 week I'll lose 5 people, and then I'll gain 6 the next week. So I started at 20 to 30 people. I'm at 50 to 60. And in 1 year from now, we will be at the lucky number 100. And at $100, that's 10 to 15 grand a month for the gym revenue. And we can open another gym if we choose, or we can move to the next location, which is 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet. But we have to be frugal. We have to be very conservative, because then you could lose this business at any moment. And what if people don't want to do Zoom meetings with me anymore? So if I lead by example and I keep pushing and following my dreams, people will follow.
That's awesome. And I love that, you know, you're helping get kids out there to the park, because my kids love going and running around, and they just feel a sense of pride. And maybe it's the same with the 5-year-olds as with, you know, myself, the 45-year-olds. There's just this sense of pride of accomplishment, you know, like the look on my kid's face when he went from, you know, white belt to yellow and yellow to orange. He's just like the pride. It's just insane. It's probably his most prized possession.
Yes.
The orange belt. And the one time that he has forgotten it to go to the park, to go to class, he was very mad at himself. He was very mad at me. And we have this deal where it's like, if they're really good during the week, on Thursday night, they get a cake pop from Starbucks. It's like their sugary treat for the week. And Gabriel just comes back to the car and he's shaking his head. He's like, I don't get a cake pop. He's like, I forgot my belt. I'm like, yeah, buddy, no cake pop for you. And then we were walking out last night. Gabriel's been awesome all week. My daughter, Alina, has not been so awesome. She walks out. As soon as we step out of the door, she starts crying because she had a bad lesson last night. She immediately starts crying. She's like, I don't get a cake pop.
Yes.
I was not listening. I was not paying attention. I'm like, this is some, my daughter's 2. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is some crazy accountability for a 2-year-old, where she's like, yep, no sugar tonight because I didn't listen to Coach Jeff.
Look at Marco's 4-year-old. He's crying. He wouldn't even say hello to me because he raised his fist in anger at his mother. And his dad told him, I'm going to tell Coach Jeff. And now he wears a white belt instead of a yellow belt. And the yellow belt is up on top of the mural right now, on top of our photo, our picture. And he cares so much about that. He's paying attention. He's listening. And he's acting right. All because of this. And then the story, we had a brand new 5-year-old. He did his class. He did excellent. He's walking around. I wrap a white belt around his waist, and he starts strutting across the room like he's doing the Millionaire March or the Conor McGregor, whatever.
The Conor McGregor just got all kinds of swagger now for a 5-year-old.
Yeah, 5 years old. Just because he has a white belt.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What are you enjoying most about teaching? Like, why are you so passionate about teaching? Because I've seen you a few times. You get angry or somebody gets a little aggressive with you, and you just go to a whole nother level of beast mode. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's the guy that used to get into bar fights at 20 years old. He just came out like a little Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So is there still that fiery passion to like get in a fight versus teaching, or what do you think you would enjoy more now?
I think about fighting every second. I think about punching you right now.
Well, that's acceptable.
If you were to act up right now,
most people
I'd think
want to
about
punch me at all times, so that's fair.
Honestly, it's just being a samurai in the garden, always ready, and hopefully you never need to use it. So I think about it all the time. But what's the benefit is when my students look good and they do a good job and they win a tournament or they defend themselves against a larger opponent in the classroom. That's what I love. I love seeing them come from behind an adversity, overcoming it, and winning as a smaller, weaker person. And that's what gives me joy, that my students will never get punked. They'll never get bullied. Just like our 5-year-old, he's special needs. I don't even know what it is, but he's so oblivious of what's going on. And some bigger kid, 9-year-old, pushed him. No thoughts, punched the 9-year-old. The 9-year-old cried to his dad. He didn't punch him in the face. He knows not to punch kids in the face. He stopped him. I've been smiling ear to ear ever since that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Speaking of this child that's in the class that has special needs, somewhere on the spectrum, I know in talking to his dad, they said, hey, you know, your son's just never going to have those motor function, physical skills. He's just not going to be a normal kid because of, you know, some mental abnormalities that he has. And the father, who's first generation here, just said, okay, cool, you're a doctor. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm going to take my kid, and I'm just going to make sure that he interacts with all the other kids, and he's going to go to jiu-jitsu. And now, you know, his son, who's definitely on the spectrum and has some unique characteristics to him, He's out there participating with all the other kids.
He's a normal kid.
Normal kid. He's got the same physicality. Now maybe he wants to talk about planets a little bit more than most 5 or 6 year olds, but as far as his physicality, he's there and he's having a great time and he's defending himself and he's understanding. It's like that's just so invaluable, which is great.
Back to doctors. Doctors don't know anything. They're practicing. I broke my hand defending a girl when I was 20 years old, 18, 19, 20. I broke my hand. I have 4 plates and 8 screws in my hand. My doctor said, you'll never be able to punch again. 6 months later, I started training. A year and a half later, I did an amateur fight. 2 years later, I went pro. There's nothing that can stop you. You can lose both your legs. You can still do whatever you want. You can still climb a mountain.
Yeah, we have a guy in our class with one leg who beats my ass on the daily.
Right.
It's very, very encouraging to see that. And also like, man, I really need to train a little bit harder because this dude with one leg is just beating the shit out of me.
Right, and you have 2 choices. Either quit and be a wuss or keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of like life, right?
It's an easy choice.
Yeah, it's just like life. Funny how that happens.
Right.
Oh, man. So tell us, you mentioned seeing your students defend themselves at a tournament or win a tournament or whatnot. Explain to people the difference between like fighting versus tournaments versus different rule sets. Like this is something that's interesting to me because just this morning you were talking about an article of like, oh, well, the International Federation of Jiu-Jitsu now allows this thing and that thing and this thing. And I'm like, isn't it just all fighting? Like talk a little bit about the rules and like what people know as the UFC versus what you're talking about in tournaments. Like what is that whole spiel?
So my style is mixed martial arts, which means every martial art in one. So the UFC is as close to mixed martial arts as possible with limited rules. You can't fish hook. You can't put your fingers in their mouth. You can't poke their eyes. You can't grab their groin. So mixed martial arts is as close to a street fight as possible without, kicking someone in the back of the head. Jiu-jitsu, you can't strike. There's with the uniform and without the uniform. You can grab the clothes with the uniform, with the gi. You can't grab the clothes in the other one. There's wrestling tournaments where you can't choke somebody. You can only try to put their shoulders on you put their back flat on the mat, pin them. There's Muay Thai, there's boxing. There's all these different sports. There's probably 30 different sports rolled into one. Sambo, judo, jiu-jitsu, They all have their own rule sets. And you have to learn the rules of every sport. And I force my students to do multiple sports and have to take away some of their weapons. You can't choke someone. Come wrestle. And then once you diversify your skills, then you can put it all together. In the mixed martial arts, self-defense, real street fighting, real mixed martial arts, UFC. So there's so many different rules and intricacies. Honestly, I don't even know the rules because I don't care. I just want to fight people. So I'll go into these tournaments. I've been disqualified for doing a toe hold on somebody in a jiu-jitsu match, and they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, then this sport is weak. So I'd rather fight somebody, but to be good at all of it, you have to diversify and put yourself in uncomfortable positions and take your weapons away.
So are there people who would, dominate in the world of, we'll just pick one, you mentioned there's 30 different ones. So somebody would dominate in the world of no gi jiu-jitsu and they have that skill set. But then if you either put a gi on them or they get into a UFC fight where it's more traditionally mixed martial arts and you can punch people, do people easily make that crossover, or it's like, you got to kind of specialize in one lane and stay in that lane?
You should stay in your lane, because if you try to cross over to another sport, you are now at the bottom. So you could be the best grappler in the world, and then you put the jiu-jitsu gi on. There are going to be people that are proficient in holding your clothes and choking you with your own clothes. You're great at jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to punch you in the face, and now your jiu-jitsu sucks. So you have to train everything or just stay in your lane. Pick one and stick with it.
Is that why and I'm asking for your opinion here, do you think that's why UFC has become more popular, marketable? That's the big, I would say if something's going to catch football, basketball, hockey in America, baseball, it's going to be the UFC versus like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Do you think the mixed martial arts, I don't know if the word is pure, but there's more appetite for that, because I know there's thousands of people that compete in gi jiu-jitsu, but nobody's getting on ESPN prime time on Friday night to do like a gi jiu-jitsu tournament, right? We're just not there yet. So why is UFC winning the marketing battle?
Less boring to watch. I can't watch jiu-jitsu. I can't watch soccer. I can't watch baseball, but I can play those.
Yeah, that's true. I can't watch baseball to save my life.
Yeah.
Can't watch soccer to save my life. Interesting.
So UFC is exciting, but you'll notice in the early days of UFC when it would hit the ground and they would do jiu-jitsu, the crowd would boo. They wouldn't know what was going on. Well, now jiu-jitsu is becoming mainstream. It's in the movies. More people do it. The celebrities are doing it. So people understand it now. When you go to Japan and watch a fight, the whole crowd is silent. And if you escape a submission, they all clap. They know how awesome it was that you escaped that move. You escape something here in America and they're like, get up, fight.
Yeah.
No, you just escaped. That was awesome. So once the regular crowd understands jiu-jitsu a little more people like you get into jiu-jitsu, tell your friends about it, it's more in the movies, then we're going to appreciate the little intricacies of an escape.
It's funny you mentioned the clapping in Japan. I have a buddy who's lived in Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, since in our entire adult life. He's been in banking over there. And I went to visit him in Hong Kong, and like gambling in Hong Kong is totally different than gambling in America. Because it's like here, you're at a roulette table or people are playing craps or blackjack and people are cheering and being loud. In Asian culture, you get kicked out of the casino if you're loud. So it's like, I mean, you would once in a while, you'd see somebody lose money and they were like maybe a very low audible grunt to just be like, and I'd be like, dude, in America, somebody be losing their shit and throwing a drink and then like everybody be cheering because somebody, rolled double sixes or something. And it's a very different experience where it's like, they're a little bit more cerebral and they're in the moment and they're just looking for the outcome. So it doesn't surprise me that in Japanese sports, they're just like, good job. Good job. You escaped. That's interesting. So where did jiu-jitsu come from?
They say Japanese jiu-jitsu, and then the Brazilians made it their own, added more moves. I don't know if judo or jiu-jitsu came first or which one branched. I read different articles, and it's hard to tell what the real history is. But it all just started for self-defense. I don't know if it was samurais or who it was, Japanese, and then Brazilians took it, and then Americans made it a business.
Yeah, just like everything else, right? We steal everything and make it a business, a.k.a. Taco Bell is not Mexican food, but it's the most consumed
Panda
Mexican
Express.
food. Panda Express, not real Chinese food. That's awesome.
But luckily, we are doing real jiu-jitsu because we're learning straight from the fountain of youth. The straight people from Brazil are here in L.A.
Yeah, that's interesting. LA has kind of become, at least for the U.S., and I know it's branched out, and I know there's big schools in Kentucky and Austin and whatnot, but LA, is that still kind of the mecca of jiu-jitsu for America, I would guess?
I know 2 living legends right here in town. I know, not in town, but in L.A. County.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's 5 more living legends that I don't know. Right here in L.A. County, I can drive 30 minutes and I'm at their gym.
Yeah, and do different gyms have different cultures? Because I know I've heard you mention a couple gyms where it's like, oh, you can only work out there if you're a black belt. Or you can only go to this class if you're this. You almost have to get it's like a gang. You got to get jumped in.
Correct.
So talk to me about the culture of different gyms and maybe some of the other gyms that you really respect around town.
I've seen the culture where you come in, you put your nose down, you fight hard, you leave. I've seen the culture where you come in, you just hang out and don't really work hard. I've seen the culture where half the gym is pushing hard, half the gym is sitting around. I've created a culture where nobody sits around, nobody's talking, we're working, but we have fun before and after class, and it's more of a family feel. We have our talks before and after class. But when we're working, we're working. And if I hear you talking in the corner, why are you here? If you're not going to get better, you can go somewhere else because I need you to make me look good. It's back to being selfish. If you look good, it makes me look good. So if you're not working, I'm not going to look good in a week from now. So you got to work. The culture of trying to rip each other's heads off and who can make you tap. I don't care if you can go in there and tap everyone out. I like that you can, but I want you to be able to teach and move and show me that you can do 5 submissions in 5 seconds rather than just one and tear their arm off. If you can go armbar, triangle, this, that, this, it shows that you understand the movement. So the culture I'm trying to push is we work hard, but we don't hurt each other. We hang out before and after class. We're friends in and out of the gym. Because if you're not my friend outside of the gym, I don't want you in my gym. I'm creating a family.
Yeah, I love that. I did go to work out at another gym, open mat, and that 50-50 feel is really interesting because there was like 50% of the guys who were, hey, we're here to get better. We're flowing. You know, I have a real job. I'm not trying to go pro. And then there was a couple guys who were just like, at different belts, white belt all the way up to black belt, like they were trying to kill you. And there was one guy like, you know, I felt like he went just a touch longer than he needed to. I'm like, yes, you've exerted dominance. You're cool. We're tapping out. But it's like, no, he just really had to go one step further. To the point where I was like, dude, you know I have a gun in my car, right? Like, I'll just forget the jiu-jitsu. I'll just blow your brains out. I wouldn't really do that. I know This is being recorded. But I'm just saying, like, it was really, it was weird because I didn't like the culture at all. Like, there were some people there that were very cool, and I enjoyed working out with them and rolling. And you could tell it was more a culture of getting better. And then there was some dudes, and you know, I know that they had regular jobs. They're not trying to be professional fighters, but they were really trying to injure you. And I'm like, who would want to do that for fun? Right. Like, this is supposed to be a workout.
Yeah. If you injure someone in my gym, you're probably getting kicked out.
Right.
Because you didn't control yourself. And this is about controlling ourselves. Yeah, you have to control your opponent, but in a street fight, you sit there and you bash their head until they die, you're going to jail. You only need to do enough to stop the attacker. And now if you stop the attacker and you crush their trachea too in class, you're a jerk and you're not going to be there. And actually, I'm going to roll with you next. I'm going to hurt you and you're not going to want to come back. I won't even have to kick you out. I'm just going to hurt you.
Yeah, that sounds very discouraging.
Yeah, you signed a waiver. So people respect you because they fear you. They respect you because you're nice to them and you give and take. So I try to earn respect on every level from my students. Being a nice friend, and also you're going to respect me because I could hurt you. I'm probably not, but I'm going to come close to it, and I'm going to let you know, hey, you could have surgery if I go 1 more inch further. Luckily, we haven't had that. Everyone's good. People don't act up, so no injuries. It's a great gym, great feeling. We're all family.
Yeah, the culture of your gym is really great. And I'm interested to see how it progresses, right? Because like I said, you got probably 20, 30 white belts in there that are learning from the 10 people that are higher belts. But where do you, like, how do you keep that environment of openness, that inviting environment, right? Because eventually a lot of these white belts are going to become blue belts, and then they're going to go a little bit harder. And then some of those blue belts are going to become purple belts. So if you look down the path a year or 2 from now, how do you retain people in this business? And then how do you bring in new blood without letting them feel intimidating? Because, you know, if I walked into your school the first time and the school was a little bit more mature and I'm looking around and everybody's just a killer, who knows? Maybe I get discouraged and I don't come back.
We teach the killers to teach. We teach them to give back and be easy to the new guys and explain to them, hey, if you do this, you're going to get hurt. If you don't, you know, so basically giving back is how you become a black belt, teaching. Once you're a purple belt, you should be teaching. You should be showing some people some things.
Explain that a little bit. How you become a black belt is giving back. What does that mean to you, or what is the ethos of that?
This is my perspective on it. When you learn how to ride a bike, when you teach someone to ride a bike, it instills that knowledge even more into your head. You learn an armbar, you show an armbar. You learn a joke, you go tell the joke, and it gets into your brain deeper and deeper. So just getting the brain to have those connections of knowing what movements to use, and then when you can explain it to someone, now you understand it more. You feel it, You know it. Jiu-jitsu is a feeling. I can't tell you what move to do. I feel what move to do, depending on where you are. It's just time. That's all it is. It's longevity. You have to stay healthy. If your gym is hurting people, you're not going to be here next year because you're going to go somewhere else or you're just going to quit jiu-jitsu. I've had a lot of students at my old gyms get hurt and quit. And now it's been 5 years. They haven't done jiu-jitsu. Now they can't defend their family. That's on you.
What else am I forgetting to ask about jiu-jitsu? Because I'm so new to this. Like, is there a lineage or is there a secret society or what are the things I'm forgetting to ask?
Well, jiu-jitsu came from Brazil that we know of. The instructor came to America. My instructor, who I learned from, went to him. So I'm one step away from that lineage.
And that lineage is the Gracie family?
I guess it's a cousin of the Gracies, the Machados.
Got it.
So my coach from Santa Clarita went to him. I went to him. And then now I'm passing that knowledge down. I have a few other instructors that are from, they're other living legends that are not part of the Gracie Machado family. They're the leg lock specialists and the judo practitioners, and they do sambo, which is another sport. But in the end, it's all fighting.
Right.
So you have to learn all of it.
Is Machado the gentleman with the birth defect with one hand or one
He
hand?
was world champion. He submitted every person in Abu Dhabi tournament. And yes, he does have a birth defect of the hand. And with that essentially one hand, he choked out every person in the greatest grappling tournament in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that one of the greatest to ever do it has a hand. Like in a sport that's 90% manipulating somebody's body with your hand, the fact that one of the greatest to ever do it has a missing hand or a stump or whatever the politically correct thing to call it is, it just blows my mind. I've watched some of his fights and I'm like, oh, what excuse do I have?
Right.
This guy's world class, one of the greatest ever, and he has a hand.
Right.
What's my excuse?
Right. I have a buddy with cerebral palsy. He's a black belt. He'll choke you out. You have no excuses. Stop making excuses in life. Suck it up and get to work. That's it. Put one foot in front of another. Stop crying. Go through the pain. You're going to be in pain. You're like, life sucks. So you might as well have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think the future of the sport is? You know, because if you watch UFC 200 versus UFC 5, it might as well be a different sport, right?
Well, the rumor is these Russians and Armenians and all the people from where Khabib is from. And
Kyrgyzstan and Kyrgyzstan, all the Stan countries.
All those people have been fighting their whole life. And then now they can get rich off beating people up. It's going to be a scary thing. So luckily I'll be out of the sport by then. But those guys are coming. And if you're not working since you're 4 years old, or you're not committed to one thing like a sport, you're not going to make it. You have to live your life of fighting or mortgage or soccer, whatever your choice is. If you don't go 100% in that one thing, you're never going to be great.
Yeah, there was a 60 Minutes Sports or CNN or something like that. I think it was 60 Minutes where they did how UFC is super big in like Chechenian areas of Russia. And it's like, these are just hard war-torn people. These are people that have been shooting guns since they were 5 and living through wars and all kinds of craziness. And yeah, now they're getting into UFC. So could you see a future where, 9 out of 10 UFC fighters are for one of the former Russian bloc countries?
That's what they're saying is happening. So we'll see. But there's people in America doing jiu-jitsu all day long, fighting all day long. There's wrestlers. So it's going to be competitive regardless.
Yeah. Why do a lot of those ex-wrestlers, Randy Couture, Matt Hughes, a bunch of the people that have made a name for themselves in fighting, what is it about wrestling that lends itself to that, people getting to that highest level of fighting? Because you mentioned you had trouble with one guy who was a really excellent wrestler, and like
more
what
than
is
one,
it?
but one
Okay.
that I remembered because it was the one guy that gave me the mouse on my eye. I got a huge golf ball on my eyebrow. He faked a takedown, which he had been hitting that takedown over and over again, and he threw the wildest, ugliest overhand right. But my hands dropped, thinking I was going to stop a takedown for once. Like, oh, I got it this time. Man, I got hit so hard.
Oh.
I went between rounds. I went to the corner. I'm like, what round is it? Is it the fourth round yet? He's like, dude, it's second round or third round, like whatever round it was.
Oh.
I was off. Oh man. And you just got to get back in there and suck it up. Like the time I broke my jaw.
Yeah, maybe your trainer should have called it off at that point when you don't know what round it is. You know, you're sitting in the corner thinking you're Batman. Maybe it's time to call it off. But yeah, so why do wrestlers kind of excel at some of these mixed martial arts fighting sports?
It is the transition game from the top to the bottom, from standing and boxing to the ground. And it takes the longest to learn how to wrestle. It's the hardest sport of all of them in my opinion. So when they have 2 years of wrestling and you have 6 months, you can't close that gap. So it's like a purple belt versus a white belt in jiu-jitsu. You can't close the gap. So if you have 2 years of wrestling versus someone with no wrestling, I don't care what kind of specimen of a body they have. It's all technique. So if you wrestled in high school and now you're fighting, you have more wrestling than them. So it's just time. That's it.
Yeah, interesting. And what's the different levels? Because I did wrestle in high school. I was an average, like, you know, I was kind of like a 500 wrestler. I never really broke out and kind of got it the way that some of the guys on our team who were, you know, state level qualifiers and went on to wrestle in high school. So, you know, I was an average wrestler on a state qualifying amazing team. A lot of those guys went to wrestle in wrestle in college. And then there's like a level above that, and then there's a level above that, and then there's like it's almost like it just becomes a different sport, right? And then you get to like Olympic level, Jordan Burroughs, all these kind of craziness. So what did you see the gap between the gap between maybe the guys that you were fighting and then like climbing the next level? You know, is it a 1% better? Is it a 30% better? Is it the guys at the top, they're actually playing a different sport? Like what are the levels when you start fighting pro?
I think it's how many hours a day are they working? Are they working 4 hours a day and you're working 2? Well, they're twice as far ahead of you. So it's just time. And now you have to run. You have to lift. You have to eat right. You have to sleep right. And it's everything all in one. Because if you're fatigued that day, if you're too sore that day, you're mentally weak that day, it all matters. So back to doing road work, doing the things that you hate to do. And I'm sure there's things in your job. You don't, like you said, cleaning the mat. I don't like to clean the mat, but you have to do it. And if you take a shortcut, you're going to lose.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember one time I jumped in an Uber. I ordered like the cheap Uber, and this Escalade shows up. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. So this Escalade shows up, and the driver, 6'7", 6'8", 6'10", something like that. Really tall black dude. And so I jump in and I'm like, hey man, you know, I got to ask, like, what's the story? Like I ordered the cheapest Uber and you show up in an Escalade. He's like, well, I'm making some extra money because I'm starting a basketball academy here in LA. And this is the only car I can sit in comfortably all day. So even though it kills me on the gas, like it's the only way I can make money because I can't sit in a Prius. I'm too tall. So I had a long drive and we talked about his basketball academy he was opening up. And he played basketball for University of Arkansas, you know, Division I, wasn't quite good enough for the NBA. And then he went to play in European ball for a while, and he was like a high school, college level coach. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what's the difference between you, who obviously had some skill and some athleticism and was blessed to be, you know, born 6'10", versus the guy who's like Lamar Odom, who makes the NBA, versus the guy who like Dirk Nowitzki, who's great, versus the Kobe Bryant, who's one of the best ever. And his answer was so shocking. And he just quickly, without even thinking about it, said, schedule. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, in high school, you know, I was just the tallest guy. And then in college, I was like a physical specimen. if I would have taken my schedule more seriously and done the lifting and gone to bed early and got into the gym an hour early to shoot a bunch of free throws. He's like, I was like Shaq, you know, I shot like 55% free throws, but I was a big dude. I was always getting fouled. If I could have got up to 90% free throws, that might have been enough to get me into the NBA. You know, if I would have eaten chicken breast instead of, you know, In-N-Out cheeseburgers every night for dinner, maybe just that little schedule and those little tweaks in my teens and my 20s, I could have made the NBA. He's like, but you don't figure that out until you're in your 30s, that like schedule matters.
Right.
So it's funny that you're effectively saying the same thing. Like, how can you find a way to put in the hours and do the lifting and do the road work and eat the right food and
be more dedicated than the other person.
Be more dedicated. Oh, scary. So what are you most dedicated now? Are you going to fight again? Is it just about building the gym? Like, what's the level of dedication in Jeff Martin's life right now?
Man, the fight will never go away. I still want to be that champion. I still want to push hard. But then your body makes excuses and you want to be mentally weak. So every day I'm battling with my head. Stop being a wuss. Get out and do the road work. My main goal is to create someone else's. Actually, I don't even care if you're a champion. I don't want any of my students to ever get bullied. And if no one gets bullied in my circle, I did my job.
But you kind of want somebody to come up and be a champion out of your gym, right?
Yeah, I'm going to put on shows here in Santa Clarita. I'll be headlining the show. My students will be on the undercard. And one day, one of my students I'll pass the baton on to them, and they're going to go to the UFC for me.
So what does that look like to run a show? Like, obviously, there's got to be some logistics and some legal and some health things and stuff, but what does it mean to run a show?
You employ the California State Athletic Commission to come to your event, like $5,000-$10,000. You got to pay the judges, the commissioners, the timekeeper.
Such a racket.
Such a racket. And they just want all this money. And then now you have to pay for the location. Now you have to pay the fighters. The hardest part is getting these fighters to not back out. They sign their contract and, oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm sick. And they don't show up to work. And now you just lost 3 fights. You went from 10 fights to 7 fights. Now your crowd got smaller. Now it's a racket. It's a pain. But it's so much fun when that show's rocking. The whole crowd, 600 to 1,000 people are going nuts, and someone gets dropped with a punch, and the whole crowd goes wild, and that's a party. So I want to throw huge parties. I want to throw events like I want to throw a great, entertaining show.
Yeah, and what are the? How many people do you have to get to show up to make sense to pay the commission and pay the fighters and stuff? Like, what size show do you have to run in order for it to make sense for everybody?
So an amateur fight, it's going to cost you 10 to 15 grand to do an amateur show. A pro show will cost $30,000 to $40,000. So now you have to think of ticket price versus how many people. So it's say we're doing amateur show, 10 grand, $100 a seat, 100 seats. Well, you want to, 50, 60 bucks. Let's go $60 seats. Well, if you can get 600 people, $3,600.
36,000.
36,000.
Yeah. Now you're talking. You
Yeah.
get 600 people to come to a $60 event. You're crushing it.
36,000. Yep. So now you made some money in an amateur show. But if you didn't rent the gym, rent the cage for the right amount of time, that might cost you $5,000. You have to have hookups. You have to know and have connections to do a show right. Otherwise, you're paying 30, 40 grand for an amateur show.
Oh, I will never forget. I've had five amateur boxing matches. I'm like 4-1, and I'm 4-0-1. I should have lost the one, so I consider it 4-1 because the guy beat me up, and I gracefully got a draw. But I will never forget. I was gonna fight in a charity boxing match, and I trained fairly hard, and it was like there was gonna be 10 fights. And the dude that I was supposed to fight is the only guy that didn't show up. And I'm not some killer who knows boxing at a high level, but I guess somebody just tagged a video of us, like all of us working out. A bunch of us got to work out together, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to get punched for real." So he just didn't show up. I've never been so discouraged in my life, and I've had some serious setbacks. But that, like when you're ready to fight and the dude just doesn't show up, you're like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm going to go drink a Coors Light now
Right.
and like watch everybody else fight.
Right.
So I can only imagine if you're the promoter, you've got $10, $20, $30,000 on the line, and then a fighter last minute, for whatever reason, they're scared of their record, or they're scared of the person they're fighting, or they're just having a bad day and they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, calls
I have
you
the
and
flu
says,
today
I have
or
the flu,
something.
I can't show up. It's like, oh, how devastating.
Yeah.
And does that happen a lot in the amateur game?
I've lost 5 fighters the week of the fight show. The week of. And you've been doing this for 6 weeks, and all of a sudden now they're like, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I didn't get my blood work done. I didn't get my physical yet. Like, dude, you've had 6 weeks. No wonder you're an amateur. So
Goes back to the schedule, right?
back to your schedule.
Crazy. So, what are you looking forward to in 2021? Like we're filming this in January of 2021. The vaccine's starting to roll out. It seems like people in general are willing to take a little bit more risks now that we know more about COVID. You know, if you're younger, yeah, things can still go wrong, but more or less, if you're younger, it's not fatal. What are you looking forward to going forward in 2021, or what's the big goals for you, the gym, the show? You're gonna fight or do some jiu-jitsu tournaments? Like what's on the agenda in 2021 for Jeff?
Self-improvement. And with self-improvement comes improvement of the gym, working on my fitness, leading by example, going to tournaments, winning another belt on January 31st in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm going to go bring home 2 belts there.
Oh, yeah. What's the event that you're competing in January 31st?
That is the Naga Jiu-Jitsu Tournament. Submission grappling, so we'll wear the gi and no gi. I went last September, October, whenever it was. I won my division. And I'm going back to win my division again and be returning champion. So I'm just going to win every tournament I go to this year. I'm pushing hard. I'm hitting this air bike that we have, the assault bike. Oh, my
That thing's
goodness.
so brutal.
Oh,
For anybody who thinks that they're in shape, either go to a gym and find an air assault bike or buy one. They're about $800. 2 minutes on that thing, and you just feel like you're ready to puke.
15 seconds on it.
I'm coughing right now today during this podcast because I tried to go as hard as I could, and I did for 2 minutes on that thing this morning. And I think just all the smoke from the cigars I've been smoking the last 6 months of COVID, it just came up from the bottom of my lungs. And I was outside coughing for like 5 minutes because that thing just works you at an insane level.
And you are now the record holder of the fastest mile at Dream.
Yeah.
By 2 seconds. You beat me by 2 seconds.
You're gonna beat it tomorrow. You're gonna kill it.
I'm going to stand up and use my legs as much as possible this time.
For sure. That assault bike is
I'm not
brutal.
letting you beat me. I'm not letting any student beat me this year.
So how many students are you taking to that Naga tournament? Like, because I know there's weight classes, there's gi, there's no gi, there's an open division. So how many people are you guys going to have competing in that?
Right now we have 8 people in our Airbnb, so we're going as a team. I think we have 5 or 6 competitors at the moment, and I'm going to be pressuring all the other students to sign up too.
Nice. So you're going to compete in your weight class. What weight class is that?
It'll be 149.9 and under without the jiu-jitsu gi on. And then it's 154 and under or 152 and under with the gi.
Got it. So you'll compete in your weight division with a gi on, with a gi off. And then are you going to do the killer division where you'll fight guys that are, or you'll do jiu-jitsu with guys who are up to 250, 300, or what is that called? The open?
It's open weight class. I fought a 215-pound beast last time. I was winning and winning and winning. And I got lazy for one moment. And basically he ripped my chest apart and almost popped my ribs, dislocated my rib completely.
Lovely.
Full separation of the rib. I still have a permanent bump there. So I'm not doing the open weight class. I'm not doing the absolute division this time. But at the end of 2021, I'm going back and I'm gonna be a force in that division.
Yeah, because the absolute, that's effectively who's the when you start to get to the higher tournaments, the Abu Dhabis, all this stuff. Right. The absolute is like if you're 160 pounds and you think you're the baddest dude in the world, you get on the mat with somebody who might be a 250-pound beast, yes. Brock Lesnar looking dude.
Yeah. And I want to beat you no matter what you weigh.
Yeah.
There's no excuses. And I'm going to find a way to win an absolute division.
Well, weren't we watching some video on some dude in your gym the other day?
Marcelo Garcia.
Marcelo Garcia, 5'8", 160 pounds, just winning the open division, crushing these guys who are like 230 pounds.
Right.
How emasculating is that if you're like
You have a sumo
world class?
wrestler smashing on you, can't even see your body, but somehow you get out from under that.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So anybody who's interested in looking at like what some of the greatest of all time with no gi on is Marcelo, what's his name? Marcelo Garcia. Yeah, I was watching his videos and I was like, I can't even comprehend how he's moving. Like he crawling around people like a spider. He didn't even look like a human. I was like, that just doesn't even look real. You know, he's just choking these guys out who are also world class, who have 0% body fat, just choking them out in 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And
most of those guys are on steroids and he's still fighting them.
It's crazy.
No excuses.
Yeah, and he just looks like a normal dude.
Yeah.
He looks like a dude that you'd kind of run into at Home Depot and be like, yeah, I'd be willing to get in a bar fight with him. And he's just one of the greatest of all time.
And probably doesn't have a six-pack.
No.
He's just nice and gentle.
Crazy. So what will be the next step for the gym? You mentioned, got to keep expenses low, but what's the next upgrade? Is it equipment? Is it a bigger size? Is it knocking out the wall and taking the space next to you?
Right.
Like, what are you excited about for the gym?
Either we buy out the massage guy next door and knock his wall down and take it, or actually the real way to make money in business is to own your building. Stop paying rent. So I have 2 more years on my lease, and the goal is to stack up a couple chips and go buy a building and be a building owner, and then rent my gym out to people or rent out the other. Maybe we buy a parking lot. So that's the way.
Nice. So you gotta save enough money in the next 2 years to go get a commercial loan and buy your own spot.
I'll be in business for that amount of time, so now they'll take me seriously at the bank and they'll actually give me loans.
Nice.
But when you first go to open a business, they're not going to give you more than 10 to 15 grand. That's a $10,000 loan and a $5,000 credit card is all they gave me.
Yeah.
But that's all you need to open a gym. You don't need any money.
Which, is kind of crazy to me, right? Because any 18-year-old in America can go sign away $250,000 on student loans and master's programs and PhDs. And it's like, I know a poor girl, she just for the life of her could not pass the bar to become a lawyer. And she went, college, USC for her master's, was going to get her MBA, switched to a Juris Doctorate program to become a lawyer. She did 8 years. She had $250,000 in student loans. And when she couldn't pass the bar, God bless her, she's an intelligent person, but just didn't click in her mind. When she couldn't pass the bar, she's got like a $60,000 a year job. She's never going to pay off that loan. And the government says, yeah, no problem. Through this college fund, we'll let you sign on the line for $250,000 with no plan of paying it back. But if you're a 35-year-old guy with a business plan, the Small Business Administration does not want to give you a penny.
Nope.
Like, go put it on credit. It's kind of crazy, right?
It's ridiculous.
Oh man. So what do you think it's going to cost you to get into a building up here? Like how much money you think you got to save and stack over the next couple of years? What's the big goal?
It's time for me to really sit down for the numbers. Since I made it through my first year, I'm 2 years away from that. So this is the year where I start looking into my schedule, looking into the numbers. So I haven't gotten to that point yet. I had to get through the first year of COVID. But I know what I'm doing. I just have to put it on paper now.
Nice.
So I don't know what the buildings cost in Newhall. I really want to stay in Newhall.
Yeah.
I like it. I see some buildings in that area which could possibly be, imagine you have your gym and your home connected and you can wake up and you don't have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
You walk downstairs and all of a sudden all your students are there ready to go.
Just roll out of bed. Tell your girlfriend to go back to sleep. I'm gonna go work out with Scott. It's 5 a.m. Just be screaming up to the bed. Hey, Janice, nice to see you.
What's for breakfast?
Can you make some eggs? We'll be done in about 45 minutes.
Scott needs breakfast too.
Yeah. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is you seem to be really passionate about teaching the kids. Why does that interest you? Why is that exciting to you? Like, I think you have almost as many kids under 7 as you do adults working out at the park with you. So what is it about kids that you enjoy teaching?
Man, I never wanted kids, but they're fun for about an hour.
Perfect.
So I will hang out with your kids 1 hour a day and then send them home with you. Their personalities are fun. They're so funny. They have no filter. They'll tell me that, like, Coach, like, what's wrong with your face? Like, what's that on your face right there? So it just puts a smile on my face, and I know that's the future. And if I would have done some of the things I do now when I was younger, I'd be in a totally different situation. So just giving them confidence. And if you're confident, you can accomplish anything. If you're not confident, good luck accomplishing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love that you don't want to have kids, but you're so good with them because you only see them an hour at a time. Is there any classes you're looking forward to hosting, or any, because I would consider your gym not a jiu-jitsu gym, but a mixed martial arts. You're doing
Correct.
kickboxing and you're doing some sparring and things of that nature. Is there a skill set or maybe something you're not even proficient in that you have to hire somebody else? Is there a next level or another class you wish you were offering?
I'm glad you said that, which reminds me, we need to learn combatives. We need to learn weapons. We need to learn how to disarm weapons, because people aren't coming to a street fight with their fist. They have a knife. They have a gun. Now,
Tip a broomstick.
yeah. Something, a pool stick.
Yeah. Did you see that guy get knocked out in that video that's gone viral at the mini mart? The dude knocked him out with like a lemonade. He had like a tall boy of lemonade. And the dude was
I've seen all the memes.
And he just like roundhoused him with a 20 ounce
Arizona tea or something.
Yeah, Arizona tea.
Whatever it was.
The dude just hit the ground like a.
It was Twisted Tea, the alcoholic tea.
Yeah, Twisted Tea. Like
Thank
Twisted
you.
Tea got real popular all of a sudden because some dude just knocked him the fuck out. But yeah, so, that's the scary thing to me, by the way. Tragically, I have a really good friend whose son stepped in trying to break up a bar fight and got stabbed in the throat and is no longer with us. And as tough as we all might think we are, or even some of these guys that fight for a living, you're not tougher than a knife. Right. You're not tougher than a gun.
Even though you think you know the defense, don't try to go defend.
Yeah, just go away. Just
No,
run
try
away.
to run away, try to avoid. But once they start to stab you, you're gonna have to know these moves.
Yeah. So who are we gonna hire to do the knife disarmament, gun disarmament, like some crazy?
I know a couple
movie
people
shit.
Already.
All right, perfect.
We have a human encyclopedia of martial arts here in Santa Clarita.
Nice.
Been talking with him. He's waiting, but I'm gonna talk him into it. If not, I'm gonna find the next best person and the next best, because there's always someone better. There's always somebody.
And when is your boxing instructor? Is he just waiting to get the vaccine and then he's going to be cool to train again? Because I'm interested in I'm interested in learning from somebody who is at the pinnacle of fighting.
Right. Man, as soon as things are back to being open and we can have 10 people in a room, he's back.
Cool.
The moment we can have 10 people, he's there.
And what's his name again?
Fernando Guerrero.
Yeah. Was he in the Olympics or was he a pro boxer? I know
Fought Olympics. He went pro. He's sold out huge stadiums of 50, 100,000 people, boxing fans. He's fought the who's who in the. So if you know who Canelo is, he's fought all those people Canelo fought. He fought all those people. So,
Cool.
And he was middleweight champion of the world.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back in the gym and start working out with him and some of the other guys, because I remember fighting with a pro fighter, this guy Eddie Sanchez, very similar to your story, kind of a journeyman, did his thing, and one day just had the fight of his life and became like the middleweight champion at 140 something pounds. And he used to be my boxing instructor, and once in a blue moon, I'd start feeling a little cocky, and he'd be like, "Hey, man," we'd be sparring. He'd be like, "Slow down, don't keep throwing those haymakers," and then I just keep going at it. And a couple times he had to really show me what a pro boxer could do, and he would just little pivot to the right and just light me up in the ribs or the kidneys so hard, and it's like your body just shuts down. You just fall to. It's like your mind is saying, "Get up, you're fine," but your body like legitimately collapses and falls to the ground. And he only had to do that once or twice, and I realized when he told me to slow down, I better slow down and not try to take his head off.
Have we ever had that situation?
Oh no, not yet. We're good so far. You haven't had to twist my arm off my body yet. So,
but I don't know if you remembered the other day, you were smashing my head. Marco was watching, and I turned it on.
Oh yeah, you got a little mad.
I didn't hurt you. I didn't get. People think I'm angry, but I go 0 to 99%.
Yeah.
And
but there's also a lot of self-control there, right? Like I see it
Right.
just in my little kids. My 5-year-old now knows, because of what he's learned through the self-control, he knows that when his sister pisses him off, he can't just punch her or pinch her or anything like that, which, to tell you the truth, was my fear. I'm like, oh, my 5-year-old's a little rough, and then I've got a little daughter. The last thing I need is him to get mad, turn around and punch her in the face or kick her or something. So I was a little worried about that, but the self-control that they've also been learning is excellent. So,
and as an instructor, it is your job every day to tell these kids, you can't do this anywhere. And if you do this anywhere, we're taking your belt away. You're not coming to class. You can't come play games here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to I have to tell them every day. Now, the adult class, I don't say it every time because hopefully they know, but, half as many times I have to tell the adults, we're not here to hurt people. It doesn't make you look cool because you can hurt someone. Right. It makes you cool that you can defend yourself.
And there's always somebody tougher. There's always some 100-pound lady who has a brown belt who can snap your arm off. So, that's what I keep thinking in mind. Every time I start to feel like a little tough, I'm just like, no, there's a 100-pound lady out there that can snap my arm in half. So, anything else you want to talk about? Anything else we forgot to mention about things we're looking forward to for 2021?
Man, set goals, get that schedule. That's something I still need to work on, getting that schedule right. And if once we implement that, sky's the limit.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you being here. Maybe we'll turn on the TV in a couple weeks. We'll watch a UFC fight, or we'll watch some jiu-jitsu matches, and you can give some feedback about what you like, what you saw, what you don't like.
McGregor's about to fight.
Oh, that's right.
And people are real hyped about that. So maybe we can get a little event at the gym and watch there, or we can watch at someone's house.
Perfect, man. We'll talk soon. Thanks for being on, Jeff.
Thank you so much.